You're a Mongol general who has witnessed countless horrors, cities burning, rivers running red with blood, the screams of thousands. Nothing shocks you anymore. But then in 1220, standing in the ruins of one of the world's greatest cities, you watch your Khan give an order so methodical, so coldly calculated, that for the first time in your battle-hardened life, you feel genuine horror. Not at the violence itself, you're accustomed to violence, but at the system behind it. Because what Genghis Khan did to enslaved people wasn't just brutal, it was something far more disturbing. It was legal, organized, and justified by the same laws that promised equality and justice for his own people. This is the story of how the boy who wore a slave's yoke became the man who built the largest empire in human history on a foundation of organized human trafficking. Let me take you back to the 1170s, to the frozen steppes of Mongolia. A teenager named Temujin sits in complete darkness, his neck and hands locked in a wooden kangu, a torture device designed for animals. The wood digs into his flesh. He cannot lie down, feed himself, or even scratch his face. Every night he's dragged to a different tent, a different guard. He's not a person anymore. He's an object, living proof that his captors have broken his clan. But while most prisoners would fantasize about escape, young Temujin is studying. He's watching, learning, taking mental notes. He notices the guards get drunk and careless. On the night of a festival when discipline collapses, he makes his move. He doesn't just escape, he convinces one of his captors who had shown him kindness to help him. Even in chains, Temujin was mastering the art that would define his empire, understanding what motivates people and using that knowledge ruthlessly. But the Kangwe wasn't his first education in powerlessness. Years earlier, when Temujin was 9, his father Yesuge was poisoned by rivals. His father's clan held a meeting, these people who had sworn loyalty, who had shared food and fought battles together. One by one, they looked at Temujin's mother Hoelun and her 5 young children and made a calculation. These mouths to feed were now a burden. So they abandoned them in winter, on the open steppe, to almost certain death. Hoelun kept them alive through sheer will. She taught them to dig for roots, trap marmots, eat things that weren't food, but would fill a stomach. But young Temujin learned something else during those desperate years. That every social bond, every sacred tradition, every oath of loyalty meant absolutely nothing when survival was at stake. The only thing that mattered was power, raw and terrifying power that made betrayal impossible because the cost was too high. These experiences forged something unique in Temujin's mind. He didn't just want revenge or power, he wanted to rebuild society according to completely different logic. Traditional Mongol society was organized around family and tribe. But Temujin had learned that family would abandon you, that tribal bonds were worthless. So he envisioned something radical, a society where loyalty was based on law, not blood, where advancement was based on merit and absolute obedience, where betrayal was impossible because punishment was so swift and certain. But if you're going to reorganize society from scratch, you need to define who's in and who's out, who the laws protect and who they don't. And Temujin, the boy who had been treated as less than human, was about to draw that line in blood. The year is 1206. After decades of warfare, Temujin has conquered every major tribe on the Mongolian steppe. A great assembly is called. Representatives gather by the Onan River, and Temujin is proclaimed Genghis Khan, universal ruler. But Genghis doesn't celebrate by launching foreign conquests. His first act is announcing a new legal code, the Yasa. When historians first study the Yasa, they're genuinely impressed. For the 13th century, some laws were shockingly progressive. It became illegal to kidnap women in a society where bride kidnapping was common. Women gained property rights. Adultery was punishable by death for both parties equally. All children were legitimate, even those born to enslaved mothers. A man born to an enslaved woman could theoretically command armies. Religious tolerance was mandated. Christians, Muslims, Buddhists, and shamanists could practice freely. Promotion in the military was based on ability, not birth. A shepherd could become a general. And most tellingly, it became illegal for any Mongol to be enslaved. Any Mongol who encountered an enslaved Mongol was legally obligated to free them. Reading these laws, you'd think Genghis Khan was building a just society based on his own suffering. You'd be completely wrong, because buried in the Yasa were other provisions. The same law that forbade enslaving Mongols explicitly allowed enslaving non-Mongols. The law, mandating helping enslaved Mongols escape, prescribed death for anyone helping non-Mongol slaves escape. Religious tolerance existed as long as you paid taxes and provided tribute, and part of that tribute could be human. He didn't abolish slavery, he weaponized it. He created a system where all progressive laws applied exclusively to Mongols, while everyone else existed in a legal gray zone with no protections whatsoever. The Yasa completely dismantled traditional tribal structure. Genghis reorganized the entire Mongol population into units of 10, 100, 1,000, and 10,000. Your loyalty wasn't to family anymore. It was to your unit, and ultimately to the Khan. If one man in a unit fled battle, the entire unit was executed. This created collective responsibility that made betrayal dangerous, not just for you, but for everyone you cared about. The system didn't rely on loyalty to a person, it relied on fear of a system. It was self-enforcing, impersonal, perfect. The first crack came with a governor named Korchi, who Genghis appointed to govern Siberian tribes. Korchi was effective, but started abducting local women for his harem, dozens of them. The Yasa explicitly forbade kidnapping women. The local tribes finally rebelled and killed Korchi. What did Genghis do? He sent an army to crush the rebellion. The message was clear. Korchi's crime wasn't the abductions. It was causing instability, requiring military intervention. The Yasa protected Mongol women. Everyone else was in a different category. Let me set the scene. It's 1220. Bukhara is one of the greatest cities in the Islamic world, a center of learning and commerce with libraries containing knowledge from across the known world. The population is around 30,000, protected by walls and soldiers. Genghis Khan is coming. The Mongol army surrounds the city completely and sends a message. Surrender now, pay tribute, acknowledge Mongol authority, and the city will be spared. Resist and face total annihilation. The governor refuses. The Mongols divert a river, flooding defensive moats and destroying walls. Within days, outer defenses collapse. The garrison is cut down. The citadel holds 12 more days, but when it falls, every soldier is executed. But the civilian population isn't massacred, not yet. Genghis himself enters the city and rides to the Grand Mosque. His soldiers throw sacred Qurans onto the floor, using ornate chests as feed troughs for horses. He orders the city's elite to gather and speaks. I am the punishment of God. If you had not committed great sins, God would not have sent a punishment like me upon you. He's using their religious framework against them, telling them their own God sent him. It's theological annihilation. But then something haunting happens. The soldiers don't rampage. There's no chaotic looting or random slaughter. Instead, they start sorting. The entire population is divided into categories. First category, skilled artisans, weavers, metalworkers, engineers, scribes. These are registered, their skills catalogued. They'll be relocated to Karakoram where they'll work for the Khan. Their families can come. They'll be fed and housed as long as they work. It's not freedom, but not death, a strange privileged slavery. Second category, young able-bodied men formed into labor battalions. But they become Hasha, human shields. In the next siege, these men will be driven ahead of the Mongol army, forced to fill moats with their bodies, scale walls, absorb arrows so Mongol soldiers don't have to. Defenders will see their neighbors being driven forward by Mongol whips, breaking the city's will to fight. Third category, women and children. Young, attractive women are distributed to Mongol soldiers or sent to slave markets. Children are adopted into Mongol households, raised to forget their language and culture. It's cultural genocide through adoption. Fourth category, the elderly, sick, disabled, and those with no useful skills simply disappear from historical records. Imagine being a Mongol general watching this unfold. You believed in the Yasa, that you were building something better. Now you're watching an entire city processed like cattle, human beings reduced to economic units. And it hits you. The Yasa was never meant to protect people, It was meant to protect Mongols. Everyone else isn't even human in the legal sense. They're resources, assets, property. One Mongol officer described it. We had seen cities destroyed before, but this was different. This was organized. It felt like farmers harvesting a crop. I realized that's exactly what we were. After Bukhara came Samarkand, Nishapur, Baghdad. Each city fed the machine. Between 1 and 2 million people were forcibly relocated across the empire during Mongol conquests. The Mongols developed an entire administrative apparatus for managing conquered populations, creating registry systems tracking skilled workers. A blacksmith from Bukhara might work alongside a Chinese engineer and Russian goldsmith in Karakoram. It was one of the first truly global workforces. The system created hierarchy among enslaved populations. At the top were skilled artisans who had security as long as they produced. Below them were domestic servants depending on their owner's whim. Below them were agricultural laborers. At the very bottom were hashar, whose life expectancy was measured in months. This hierarchy created competition among the enslaved. The artisan didn't want to become a laborer, the laborer didn't want to become hashar. So they worked harder, didn't rebel, informed on each other. The system made the enslaved police themselves. The economic impact was staggering. Mongol nobles became obscenely wealthy. Some generals became human traffickers selling captives. Karakoram transformed from a tent city into a cosmopolitan metropolis built by enslaved artisans. The Great Palace had Chinese roofs, Persian gardens, and European metalwork, a monument to organized exploitation. The most effective aspect was weaponizing fear. The Mongols developed sophisticated propaganda networks. Tales of the sorting spread, making cities surrender without fighting. When the Mongol army appeared, defenders knew exactly what would happen if they resisted. Many cities simply opened their gates, accepted vassalage, paid tribute, provided demanded populations. The system of organized slavery became a tool of bloodless conquest. After Genghis Khan's death in 1227, every son and grandson maintained the system. It outlived its creator by centuries, persisting in Central Asia until Russian conquest in the 19th century. That's 600 years of continuity for organized human trafficking. Here's what makes Genghis Khan difficult to assess. By standards of his own people, he was genuinely progressive. He promoted by merit, protected Mongol women, granted religious freedom, created unprecedented stability. Mongol life expectancy increased, crime dropped, trade flourished. For average Mongols, the Genghis Khan era was a golden age. But that golden age was built on systematic dehumanization of everyone else. It's tempting to dismiss him as simply evil, but that's too simple. Monsters are chaotic. Genghis Khan was rational. He built systems, created laws, planned for generations. That's more terrifying than random brutality. The underlying logic, having progressive laws for your people while systematically exploiting everyone outside that circle, isn't ancient aberration. Colonial powers built empires on exactly this logic. Britain had rule of law at home while extracting wealth through exploitation in India and Africa. France proclaimed liberty and equality while maintaining brutal colonial regimes. American founding fathers wrote, "All men are created equal," while maintaining slavery. The pattern repeats: draw a circle around us, create laws protecting us, treat everyone outside as resources. In Mongolia today, Genghis is celebrated as a national hero, the founding father. From that perspective, they're not wrong. In Iran, Central Asia and Eastern Europe, he's remembered as catastrophic destroyer. Death toll estimates range from 30 to 40 million, roughly 10% of world population. Both views are accurate. Which brings us back to Bukhara, when generals realized what they'd become part of. Some walked away troubled but accepted it as the price of empire. Others embraced it and built fortunes. A few expressed doubts in writings, but none stopped because they couldn't. The system was too big, too efficient, too embedded. How many systems exist in our world where people know something is fundamentally wrong but participate anyway, because the system is too big to fight? How often do we convince ourselves that efficiency justifies inhumanity? The story of Genghis Khan's slavery system is about how easily humans rationalize organized cruelty when dressed in language of law, efficiency, and civilization. The boy who wore the slave's yoke became the man who built an empire on systematic enslavement. Not through chaos, but through order. Not through mindless brutality, but through careful legal architecture. And that should terrify us more than any tale of simple savagery. If this story moved you, leave a like and subscribe. Share with those who love history. Thank you for listening. See you next time.